These are the worst cycling crashes of the modern era, the kind where metal barriers explode like paper, where riders are catapulted through the air, and where skin, bone, and machine collide in violent chaos. In these moments, you don't just crash, you shatter. These accidents don't just end races, they reshape lives, redefine careers, and remind everyone how thin the line is between glory and disaster. Wout van Aert, the cut that changed everything. Tour de France 2019. Wout van Aert was flying, locked in the time trial position, cutting through the course in Pau like a surgeon. He looked untouchable, a rising star proving he could match the best. Every pedal stroke was power and precision. Then, at a tight right-hand turn bordered by metal fencing, disaster struck. Traveling over 55 kilometers per hour, Van Aert clipped the barrier, which exploded under the impact. His right leg was sliced open by the jagged edge, a deep, gruesome wound that left fans speechless. He was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. His tour was over, and it looked like his spring classics season would be too. But Wout is made of different stuff. Months later, he returned, not broken, but hardened. Faster, fiercer, and mentally bulletproof. That crash didn't end him, it forged him. Geraint Thomas, The Fall in the Mountains, Tour de France 2015. Few crashes capture the chaos of mountain descents like Geraint Thomas's fall on the road to Gap. After grinding his way up a brutal alpine climb, Thomas led the chase group on a winding descent known for destroying nerves and bikes alike. At over 70 kilometers an hour, Barguil, ahead of him, took a corner too wide. The two brushed shoulders, just a touch, and Thomas was launched off the road, headfirst into a telegraph pole. It looked horrifying. Yet somehow he got up, shaken but conscious, climbed back onto his bike and rode to the finish, despite a mild concussion and a torn shoulder muscle. Most would have abandoned on the spot. But this was Geraint Thomas, the man who once rode half the tour with a broken pelvis. When teammate Chris Froome saw him afterward, he joked, "Yeah, I think the doctor's gonna ask me my name and date of birth soon. So, gee, can you remember either?" That crash became part of his mythology, a symbol of sheer defiance against pain. Philippe Gilbert, The Wall and the Will, Tour de France 2018. Philippe Gilbert has never been afraid of danger, but on the descent of the Col de Portet d'Aspet, the same treacherous road where Fabio Casortelli lost his life in 1995, even courage met its match. Gilbert was descending at over 70 kilometers an hour when his tires lost grip. He slid wide, went airborne, and disappeared over a stone wall, vanishing from sight. The broadcast froze. Silence filled the air. Moments later, he climbed back up, covered in blood, his knee visibly broken. And yet, unbelievably, he remounted his bike and rode another 60 kilometers to the finish. No theatrics, no self-pity, just pain, pride, and pure willpower. That day didn't end his career. It added another chapter to his legend. Johnny Hogerland, The Barbed Wire Nightmare, Tour de France 2011. Nothing in cycling history looks quite like Johnny Hogerland's crash. He was part of a 5-man breakaway when a TV car tried to overtake the group. The vehicle swerved to avoid a tree, clipped Juan Antonio Flecha, and sent Hogerland flying into a barbed wire fence. It looked horrifying. Yet somehow he got up, shaken but conscious, climbed back onto his bike and rode to the finish, soaked in blood but roaring with pride. He didn't win that day, but to millions he became the embodiment of cycling's brutal beauty. Julien Alaphilippe, The World Champion's Fall, Tour of Flanders 2020. Julien Alaphilippe was riding in an elite trio with Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel just 35 kilometers from the finish. The crowd sensed something historic brewing. Then, in a blink, it ended. Reaching to adjust his radio, Alaphilippe looked up too late. A motorbike had stopped just ahead. He slammed into it at full speed, somersaulting through the air. His hand shattered. His season was done. Fans and riders alike were outraged. A world champion taken out not by a rival, but by a stationary motorbike. It wasn't bad luck, it was negligence. That crash reignited the debate about safety and race organization in modern cycling. Richie Porte, The Fall on the Edge, Tour de France 2017. Richie Porte was in the form of his life, a real contender for the podium. But the descent of Mont du Chat was slick and treacherous. One corner, one fraction too fast, and it was over. Porte slid out, tumbled off the road, and hit the ground violently. He suffered a fractured pelvis and collarbone, injuries that would take months to heal. In a sport where momentum is everything, his tour and his season were instantly gone. It was a painful reminder that in cycling, 1 second of misjudgment can erase a year of preparation. Remco Evenepoel, The Drop into the Ravine, Il Lombardia 2020. The Colma de Sormano descent is infamous, narrow, technical, and unforgiving. For Remco Evenepoel, it became a nightmare. His front wheel clipped the parapet wall, and in an instant he was gone, catapulted into a ravine below. The crash looked fatal. Rescue teams found him conscious but gravely injured, a fractured pelvis, a bruised lung, and months of rehabilitation ahead. He eventually returned to racing, but the memory of that fall haunted him and the sport for years. Andrei Kivilev, The Crash That Changed the Rules, Paris-Nice 2003. Some crashes change more than careers. They change the sport itself. Andrei Kivilev was a respected Kazakh rider, known for his quiet strength and professionalism. During Stage 2 of Paris-Nice, his front wheel touched another rider's, sending him down hard. He wasn't wearing a helmet. At that time, few were. He struck his head, was rushed to hospital, and never woke up. He was 29, a father, and a beloved figure in the peloton. His death led the UCI to make helmets mandatory, a rule that, despite initial resistance, has saved countless lives since. Kivilev may not have won Grand Tours, but his legacy protects every rider who has raced since. Fabio Jakobsen, The Sprint Gone Wrong, Tour of Poland 2020. The sprint in Katowice was supposed to be straightforward, 80 kilometers an hour, full gas, shoulder to shoulder. But Dylan Groenewegen drifted across the road, closing the line on Fabio Jakobsen. The collision sent Jakobsen flying into the barriers, head first. Fencing exploded, officials dove for cover, and silence fell over the finish line. Jakobsen was left unconscious, his face shattered, his injuries catastrophic, life hanging by a thread. Medics rushed to him as silence fell over the finish line. Within minutes, he was placed in a medically induced coma. But Jakobsen survived. Against all odds, he fought his way back. Months of surgery, rehabilitation, and sheer willpower followed. And then, a year later, he returned to the sport that nearly killed him. Not just to ride, but to win again. He claimed sprint victories, even at the Tour de France, proving that courage can outlast trauma. His crash changed more than his body. It changed cycling itself. The sport was forced to look in the mirror. New rules came, safer barriers, redesigned finishes, tighter controls on sprints. Jakobsen's suffering sparked reform. His pain became progress. Then came Alessio Martinelli at the 2025 Giro d'Italia. A young rider, full of promise, on a day that should have been routine. The rain came down hard, slicking the asphalt into glass. Tight mountain turns became traps. Martinelli lost traction, slid wide, and vanished, plunging 15 meters below a guardrail into a ravine. When rescuers reached him, the sight was unbelievable. Conscious, no fractures, only heavy bruising. He was lucky, impossibly lucky. But the peloton above was silent. Riders slowed, shaken, reminded once again that every descent could be their last. How many times can cycling call this bad luck before it stops being luck, before the sport admits that danger is not an accident, it's a design? These crashes aren't random moments of misfortune. They are the brutal truth of the sport, raw, merciless, and real. Cycling isn't just about endurance. It's about surviving chaos at 80 kilometers an hour. It's about courage measured in scars, about the split second where mastery meets mayhem. Some riders walk away, others don't, but every one of them leaves a mark on the road, on their bodies, and on the history of cycling itself.